Alright, hello everyone. It's been a little while since my last update thing. Actually, I think it's been about 3 months or something. Well, soon. And the reason it's been so long is because I've actually been rewriting pretty much every single part of the project. Mostly so I can get the newer stuff working. There's still some things I need to add, but right now I'm at the point where I've basically come as far as I had before. I think I've actually come a bit further than I was able to on the last pre-rewrite version. Basically, the reason I rewrote it, well, the things I needed to rewrite it for was so I could add classes. They have not been fully implemented yet, as in you can't really reference other classes. It's possible to reference other classes. It's just it won't be possible to import other classes and use multiple classes like that yet. That will be added very soon, and it won't be too hard to add. Anyway, I'm just gonna press F5 here and get this in shot here. So yeah, as you can see, I've removed for now the command line interface I used for the executor, because now it's split inside of a solution. It's split into multiple projects, which means that before, while the before the command line interface and the language, the parser and such itself were in the same project. Now they are different projects, just referencing, well, with just references and such to DLL files. So this is just the temporary executor. It's currently not able to start anything if you double click a file, or an executable file, but it is able to find executable files placed within its directory, which is what it's doing here. As you can see, I have a folder inside of this inside of the debug directory called test programs, where I have just a few programs for testing. So I'm going to go through these, as well as I also have the code for each and every one of these open, so we can go through that as well. So this may be a longer video. Yeah, and I do plan to probably eventually have some more programming oriented videos where I go through maybe actually programming some parts of the parser and such. So anyway, as I was saying, the rewrite was strictly because I needed to get classes to work. And if we open up a file here, as you can see, we have class color printing, and yeah, there's some comments in this one because I need to test that at the same time as testing just printing in colors. So even the class thing was not really possible in the last version because of how messy it was. Now things have been divided up a little bit better than before, and basically it was a lot easier now to add these things. And just to start off, I've actually made some changes. For instance, let me open up a new one here. You no longer, as you can see here, when you create a function, you no longer type it out like this. Mostly because this character was actually completely irrelevant. You could equally just typed out function main returns num. That would just have worked. So instead and that has some things to do with how the code is split up. So now it's just num after there. So it means just create a function, call it main, have these arguments. In this case, it doesn't have any, accept any arguments, and the return type is number. Funnily enough, though, I've not actually added anything that returns a number on the main function, which is a required function, as I've explained, I believe, in a previous video. But there's actually nothing that returns the number there. It just returns a null, I think, and quits. That comes later, because I still need to figure out how to make it know these things. I could just make you add like a return 0 down there, which would work. This would actually return 0 because return is a command. Anyway, yeah, let's start this file. I hope I didn't forget to say anything. There we go. So as we can see, it now says, sorry for dragging it around, it now says second 9 and test 1, 2, 3. So if we go through what happens here, first it creates some variables. A string called test is equal to first. Then we edit the variable test and we'll make it equal second, which is why it says second right here. And then we create a number n, which is equal to 1 plus 4 times 2. Now, if you were to type this into a regular calculator and nothing more advanced, this would go, okay, we have 5 times 2, so it would go 10. But that is not the case at all here. It will instead go, okay, 4 times 2, which is equal to 8, and then add 1 onto that, which is 9. Because that's how, order of operations, and it will follow that as it did before. Although I don't remember if I ever fixed a bug there on the previous version that is fixed now, but I think it is fixed. Alright, then we will print the variables, which prints test and n. So you can see the little string merger here, because it gets these two variables and then merges them into a single string. And as we can see here, and it's very reliant on this AND operator here, because if you had a plus, it would scream at you, because plus operators mean, unlike in C#, for instance, where use a plus to add two strings together, or a string and an integer together, although you need to parse the integer, or convert it to a string. But in this case, you have to use the AND operator, as you had to previously as well. So in this case, it should just print second and 9, which it does right here. Then we move on to testing some other things, which is, I think I got it to work. I got some things to work. I got it to work partly, I think, in the pre-rewrite version of it, although I never fully finished writing it. Also, if my voice sounds weird, it's because I have a cold, or I'm getting sick or something. But anyway, in the pre-rewrite version, I don't think I ever got this to fully work. I don't remember why, because it's not that hard, although there were some problems here. But anyway, it goes set color, which is the command, and it has, the first place is background, the second argument, the first argument is background, and the second argument is foreground. So we have set color black and white, and then it will print test, and it will not only print, it will print in line. That is what printil stands for, which basically just means that with a normal print, if you open up a new document here, in normal print, you go something like this: print hi. So it will go, okay, we need to print something, so this is what it prints. In terms of C# or any C language, basically, it goes hi, and then it switches to a new line, which is what that character means in C#. Well, it doesn't necessarily do print exactly that, but that is equivalent of what it would print. But so instead of doing that, it just prints hi when you do printil. So it would just printil test, and then we set color to black and red, which means black background, red foreground. And then we print 1. As you can see, I used the number 1 here and not the string string 1, and it still works because there's not any addition happening here, or no mathematical operation, so it will just work. Then we change the background to black. Well, we don't change the background actually, but you have to include the background in order to change the foreground, and vice versa. Currently, we change it to black and green, and then finally we change it to black and blue, and it will print in line 3. I believe there is a command such as reset color. It's just not been used here, which does make me wonder why it just works. I'm not gonna question it. So yeah, what we would expect there is to have white test and then red 1, green 2, and blue 3, which we do. Okay, so that works. And since this has finished executing, I just have to press enter, and I get back to this menu here. That is not the case when it crashes. There's no in the pre-rewrite version I tried having a sort of a soft crash where it would crash and it will tell you the error, and then it will just continue going from where it left off, or just finish executing code. That was not a good idea. It made debugging hell. Debugging has been hell with this as well, because for quite a large stretch of time I had to just write code and hope that it worked, because there was no way I could debug it due to it not even being able to execute. I don't think I was able to actually debug it until I had basically finished writing most of the fundamentals here, like creating a class from a single document, not importing anything like this, just creating a single class and adding a function into it. I think it supported multiple. It just had to work with one, and of course it didn't. But at least at that point it allowed me to troubleshoot it, because it was supposed to execute, and that was not fun at all. But okay, let's move on to the second test program here, which is input.jm. The names will probably change eventually. So okay, let's switch the input over here too. And it's, as you can see, it's just a single function here, as usual. So okay, let's start up. My name is Jonathan. I spelled that correctly, yes. And my age is 18. And then it just says, "Hello, Jonathan. You're 18 years old." This was one of the later things I added, because I'd completely forgotten to add it. But it was probably a good idea I did add it so late, because it illustrated some problems, an error I had made. I had forgot to type a break, a single break command inside of a little thing I have inside of a datatypes.string class that it merges a list of strings into a single string by doing mathematical and string operations. But anyway, yes. So as you can see, it says, "Hello, Jonathan. You're 18 years old." And what we should expect from the code here is exactly that. It says print in line, "What is your name?" and a space right here, because those are important. And as you can see, that meant I typed my name directly after the "what is your name." And then there's I create a new variable called string name, and I equal it to input. This time, as you can see, I have actually brackets after, because it is. I'm not sure if it works without them. I don't think it does. So they're required now. That basically just means grab input and put it into name. Which I think the thing I like about doing that is that it will actually execute this part here before executing this part. Before it even knows that it's supposed to create a string, it actually executes this, just because it's important to be in that not necessarily for grabbing input, but for instance, if you had a super long print thing where you printed things from multiple functions and you had function calls inside of other function calls, nested calls, previously would just crash, because the pre-rewrite version was only capable of doing another function call inside of another function call. I think it was limited to one, which was not very fun to work with, as you can probably imagine. But basically how I fixed that in the rewrite version is I made it replace all those things and run all those functions first before it actually executes the line, which means that so far hasn't caused any crashes, unless other than issues I've had with it that are related to errors I've made. that happened, but those have been fixed now, even though there's probably a lot left. So yeah, anyway, it just says string name is equal to input. So it gets input and then defines the variable's name of type string. And then it says, okay, how old are you? And also note here that I because I pressed enter after entering my name, it will print this on a new line. So okay, then it says how old are you? And I create a num, age is equal to input. This is very important actually, because here you can see I create a number. And as I've probably explained previously, the num type variable in this language is equivalent to the double type variable in C#, for instance, or Visual Basic, I think also has a double. Probably every .NET language, honestly. Well, actually, I think most languages have doubles. They should, at least. Because this is a double precision floating point, so it would make sense. But that is just for compatibility. But that is important because if you enter a string here, it will crash, as you probably expect. There is currently no toString converting anything to another type of variable or other type of data type, going from a string to a number or a number to a string. That is currently not a thing, but it's a lot easier to go from a number to a string because of how things are stored as variables. Well, I guess not stored as variables, but stored in the line, because since the line consists of just a string of strings, more of a list of strings actually. That means that each thing inside of a line, each item that as I call them, is going to be a string. So the conversion happens upon variable definition, or the conversion can happen in the code when required. Which means that if you enter a string here, it will just scream and crash because it's not a number. And I don't mean to explain that better, I mean, to explain that better, I mean this. Okay, I cannot spell. This is a string, for instance, and this is handled as one item. If you were to enter, when it asks for input, if you were to enter a number, then in the code it would actually look like this, as this is an item now inside the list because it only lists strings. It's at the time of defining a variable, it will try to parse this into the number, which is this. It just basically just takes this and okay, it's a string, so let's just put this into a number. Now if we were to try to convert this into a number, it would crash. Because these are both strings, but this is a string that doesn't consist of numbers. Kind of poor explanation, but hopefully you understand something. Or maybe I'm just yeah. Hopefully I can make myself understood there. And well, anyway, finally it just prints the whole hello and name. You are age years old. And then it ends the function and ends the class, and it's done, which means we can just press enter. Alright, and now we come to one of the biggest ones. This one took a decent bit of time and thought. That is nested calls. So anyway, as you can see, nested calls. Let's press enter there. And it just prints test 1, 2, 3. Not very impressive, is it? But this is what the code looks like. Not only do we have, for instance, not only do we have something, we don't have this, basically. This is not something we have, because this would be a lot easier to handle. It's just, okay, just get this, and then get this. Super easy. No. What we have is instead, we're going to leave that open now. what we have instead is foo, and inside of foo we send this argument, bar. I could not come up with any name, so I just picked whatever. And yeah, since these are nested calls, we have one function call, two function calls, and a third function call, all inside of each other basically. So what it will do is it will run through here. It will, before even seeing this print thing, it will see that okay, it's going to go backwards here. Read this string backwards in order to find the first function call inside of a string, and it will say, okay, so this is a function call and its argument. We want to basically see what it wants, and it's, as you can see, bar down here, which is this function, does not accept any arguments, so we don't need to worry about that because this contains no arguments either way. So okay, let's just go to bar and have bar. Okay, it returns a string, and it returns the string 1, 2, 3. As you can see, it doesn't return the number, it returns the string. If you were to just type out 1, 2, 3 without the quotation marks, it will still be fine, since it will convert to string upon sending back. It's just a lot more neat to type the quotes out. That does not work as well when you're when it returns a number, but string is pretty resilient. It will basically work with anything. Okay, so then it will replace this entire function call and its argument with 1, 2, 3. And it will say, okay, we have another function, foo, and its arguments are what's left of this, which is 1, 2, 3. So it will say, okay, it accepts the argument string s, and indeed there's a string in here, so let's send it to it. And it returns a string, and then it says, okay, return test and s, which is this right here. And now that it's returned it, it will replace foo with bar inside of it there. It will replace all of this with test and 1, 2, 3, which essentially means that what it ends up printing is test 1, 2, 3, which worked. And that took a long time. That was one of the harder things to write because of a lot of changes I had to make. A lot of things didn't work, and it was a fairly extensive debugging procedure. But it finally works. And we get on to the last one, which is just returning and sending, which was actually used in the last one, but this was just to test that it works completely. So in order to do that, what we have is a function main and a function test. Function main has no arguments, it returns a number. Function test has 3 arguments of the type num. We have num x, y, and c, or z, depending on where you come from. And then it will just go, okay, let's return x plus y plus c. So that's what we have, okay. And in main, it goes, okay, we're calling the function test, and we're giving it the arguments 1 for x, 2 for y, 3 for z. So all it does is add 1 plus 2 plus 3 up, which becomes 3 plus 3, which is 6. So the final return and printed value is 6. So that works. And this, oops, what did I click? So this is basically as far as I've gotten. I'm working on some things still. One of the things I'm working on is an if expression, not a statement, whereas a statement would just be if true, and then do things, and if. There you go. That's just about what it will look like actually for this language. This is an if statement. What I'm making currently is just to get the basic parts of an if statement down is if true then do things. As you can see, it's only a single line. I do not plan to add any else things. There's just if. So this is an if expression, and that's what I'm currently adding. That's for another update video. So yeah, anyway, this was not previously possible. And I'm actually getting a message from my phone. Let me just check that. It wasn't important. Anyway, so this was not really possible in the pre-rewrite version. It was possible to send a single argument, I think. Maybe two, but in any case of how many were possible in the previous version, this one handles it much better. What it does is it utilizes a thing I'm calling sublines. I think it's a thing in other languages as well, but I'm not talking about, for instance, just typing line 1, line 2, line 3. Since this would allow you to have multiple complete lines inside of a single line, which is possible actually in it's perfectly possible with the thing I wrote in order to make that work. It does support using, for instance, a semicolon to split different lines up, so you can have a single line in the document, but it's, or the script file or whatever, in code, but that will actually, when parsed, become 3 separate lines. But that is not the main use of it. I may make that something it's able to do later. The main use of it is to take, for instance, an argument like this and split them up into sublines, which means that when you call on test here, it will go through this argument that it gets, and it will say, okay, we have 1, oh, and then we have a comma. Currently, it's telling me that the comma is going to split up the line. So it removes the comma, and then it starts a new line. This is 2, okay, and then followed by comma. So we split up a new line again, and 3, split up by comma. Which basically means that 1, 2, and 3 becomes where each letter is its own little thing inside of a list here. It becomes 1, 2, and 3. This works for longer lines or anything. Still getting messages. So if we had line 1, line 2, line 3, this will become line 1, line 2, line 3. Splits up like this. Basically that just made it so much easier to send and return things, mostly send, because it can just go, okay, we have this, send this little split up line here, these sublines, and for each subline here, just get the value of these, and it works. So yeah, anyway, that's basically everything. It's not all things that I've done. I mean, it's a lot more complex under the hood, and I may do a video really going through what happens, and possibly a video where I actually code things for the language. But this is pretty big progress. Plan to have, as soon as I get if expressions, I will do if statements and loops. And somewhere either during that or in between those or after that, I will also be adding importing and such. Since that won't be too hard, I just have to figure out how I want to do it. So expect more updates, possibly even some other videos that are not really related to the language in the future. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.